So the Stihl 440, I did a video earlier on cleaning up this saw. I ended up picking it up from a guy about an hour away from me, and it was a saw that was highly recommended to me by different fallers, not only for its performance, but also for its toughness. And before I actually got a chance to get this saw out and running, I wanted to get a couple performance parts on it and to get it all tuned up correctly, just so that this saw could run at its peak performance. And it's back from getting some of that stuff done. So a couple things that I had done to it. I had a West Coast Saw bark box put on the front. These guys are from this area, West Coast Saw in particular, and then I also got their 3-point felling dogs. Now these felling dogs have actually made a pretty big difference. I'm not a professional timber faller, and I don't cut for a living, but I do a lot of firewood stuff and take out some trees on my property, and these 3-point dogs are awesome. Gordy, the owner of West Coast Saw, has a great video out on his YouTube channel on just the perks of having these 3-point dogs on there, and then also the performance of this bark box. So to give you guys some base specs on this saw, I don't have the numbers memorized, so I wrote them down, but just to give you guys a good basis for this saw. So this saw was built in 2005, my particular model here. This is the MS440. So the specs that this saw came with, it's a 70.9 cc saw at about 13.9 pounds, and the performance of the saw comes in at 5.4 horsepower. So for the weight, it puts out a lot of horsepower for being also a 71 cc saw. So some of its competitors today, you have the 462, and the 462 comes in a little bit lighter. Let's see here, 462 comes in at 13.2 pounds. It's got 72.2 cc's, so it's got, roughly about a cc more than this saw, but it puts out 6 horsepower. Then you have a saw that comes in lighter than both of those options. You have the Stihl 400. You got the 400 CM, so Stihl's E-carb, which is pretty sweet. If you guys haven't used an E-carb, they're pretty awesome. But the Stihl 400 comes in at 12.8 pounds at 66.8 cc's and 5.4 horsepower. So the horsepower numbers match this saw, but it has less cc's and it's a little bit lighter. So you might think that all these saws are fairly comparable. I would say all those options are great saws, but the more and more that I talk to people about finding a good saw for myself that I could use if I ever got into timber falling, I could bring a saw up in the mountains and cut with it. I could be in my backyard, I could buck large timber. I wanted the opportunity to run a 28-inch bar to a 32-inch bar max, and I wanted the chainsaw to be able to pull it pretty well and also have a saw that's fairly nimble. If I'm trying to make cuts in the tree, if I'm trying to buck firewood all day, I do have my 261, but that just doesn't cut it when it comes to bigger wood, and so this is the type of saw that I really wanted to find. The Stihl 400, I haven't actually gotten a chance to run that saw, but I've done a lot of reading on it, and especially when it compares to the 462 and the 440, that saw just really doesn't compare when it comes to the performance numbers and cutting through bigger wood, especially when you're running a 28-inch bar or bigger. The 462 is a great saw. A lot of people think that the 462 is the newer version of the 461, and that's actually not the case. So Stihl did something kind of interesting on their numbering system when it came to the 462, the 461, and then the 440. So Stihl's 461 cc saw, that is part of Stihl's 77 cc line. Another great saw. That 461 did such a great job in performance, in marketing. Stihl sold a lot of those saws, and it got great reviews for its durability, that when Stihl wanted to come out with essentially the most updated version of this 440, instead of naming it, they already had the 441 out, instead of naming it the 442, Stihl decided to name it after their 461, which aka is now their 462. So a lot of people think that the 462, it has higher cc's than it actually does, but it actually is just a little bit bigger version of this saw right here. And so the 462 is also a phenomenal saw. It puts out a lot of horsepower. Those are the saws that I run currently in my job. As a firefighter, we don't actually end up cutting a lot of wood. It's usually cutting roofs and stuff like that. So I haven't gotten a chance to actually sink a 462 into any type of rounds on my property or cut any trees down with it. I know that it gets great reviews and would be a great saw. Surprisingly, I was pretty blown away that a good condition 440 is actually selling in my local area for the same price as a 462, and that kind of got me curious. I was like, why are they so comparable in price? And I think that came down to a couple of different reasons. So Talking to Gordy in particular, the owner of West Coast Saw, he was actually the gentleman that recommended that I get this in particular saw, this Stihl 440. And he told me that out of all the saws that he has cut with, for something that's just a great all-around saw, not only in performance, but in durability and toughness, that this 440 would be at the top of his list. And I listened. It's a guy that has cut a lot of wood in his life, and so for me, I kind of want to perk up and listen. When you go onto Reddit, when you go into a lot of forums, of course, you know, people can talk, they type away on their keyboards, but a lot of the guys that have been cutting for a long time said that this is one of the best saws that Stihl has ever made. And after getting a chance to run it for a while, I would believe them. I'll give this a little bit of a startup for you guys, and so that you guys can actually listen to this thing sing. It sounds pretty darn awesome. This is a cold saw, cold start on this thing. So you guys can hear this sucker screams. It's been tuned for that specific bark box. This thing's got a lot of fuel running through it, a lot of power. I've ran it in a lot of small wood here on my property, some big wood as well. I made a lot of cuts with it. I don't have a ton of time behind this saw, but the time that I've had with this saw, I've been very, very impressed. I've been pleased with the way that it's gotten a chance to run. And overall, it's just been a sweet saw. So let's get into some clips of me cutting with this thing. Well, you guys got a chance to see this saw run in a couple of different clips, cutting some small wood over there by my house, and then also getting into some of this bigger stuff. I'm obviously not the best cutter. I'm still learning, but that's what I love really about running chainsaws and just kind of running tools out here, is that you're never too old to learn, and it's always good to pick up a new skill here now and then. So what are my impressions on this saw? Well, it's just been awesome. I don't have a ton of experience running a lot of other saws. Got a chance to briefly run a 500i. We run 462s at work. I haven't run a 400C or 400 in general, but overall, I can tell you that I'm very impressed with this saw. Just the way that it cuts, the durability, the performance, it's been awesome. And it's no surprise that it probably lives up to its legend of being one of the best Stihls that has ever been made. So if you have an opportunity to pick one up, I would say that you should pick one up. They're only getting more and more expensive, which is kind of funny because it's an older saw. But I would say that this is overall 100% worth the money. It's going to be great for me. It's going to outperform probably what I can do. If I ever get a chance to go up and get a chance to fall some timber and to learn kind of more about that side of running a chainsaw, I know for sure that I can take this saw with me and that it will serve me well. Currently running a 28-inch Stihl bar. I can run up to a 32-inch, especially with the way that it's been tuned and the performance of this saw. One thing I will say that I didn't mention in the beginning of the video, and that is that this chain here has the rakers filed very aggressively on it. It wasn't by my own doing. When I bought the saw, it was a good chain, but for some reason the previous owner took a lot off the rakers, and so those teeth are really harsh. They're really grabbing a lot of wood, which makes the saw run a little bit harder, especially in this bigger stuff here. It makes the saw have to work a lot harder because it's grabbing a lot more wood. And so as that chain gets filed down and actually gets back within spec with the rakers, I'm sure this saw is even going to perform even better than I even thought. But for right now, it's been great. I hope you guys got a chance to enjoy this video. If you guys have any questions for me, feel free to let me know. Or if you find one of these saws for a good deal and pick one up, you'll have to let me know how you guys like it. So hey, thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next one.